Today was day 19 in the trial of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. An ex-girlfriend who goes by Jane Doe continued her testimony comparing Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassie's freak-offs to her hotel nights where she was having sex with male escorts. Much of her testimony today involved text messages, making it clear that this was a transactional relationship with Combs where she was financially supported but was expected to engage in countless hotel nights against her will. All the while, Combs's defense team wants the judge to declare a mistrial, claiming that witness Brianna Bongolan's testimony was totally and completely made up and that they attributed to prosecutorial misconduct. In other words, the prosecutors suborned perjury. I'm criminal trial attorney Sara Azari, and this is Serving Justice, where we're examining all sides of the Sean Diddy Combs criminal trial with daily analysis. And now I want to bring in my guests who are joining me today: prosecutor extraordinaire, former state attorney in Florida, and founder of Dave Aronberg Law, Dave Aronberg himself, friend of the show, friend of mine. And also with us is NewsNation field producer Tommy Christaldi, who has been following this trial daily from the Manhattan courthouse. So guys, thanks for joining me today. And I want to start with Dave first. Dave, the defense team has filed a motion for mistrial claiming that Brianna Bongolan, who was going by Bana, her testimony was completely false, that she committed perjury, and they're attributing this false testimony largely to prosecutorial misconduct. Now, the defense says Diddy wasn't even in the state when Bana claimed that he dangled her from an apartment balcony. What do you make of this motion, and how do you see the judge ruling on it? Because it's taken under submission for now.
Good to be back with you, Sarah. Unless the defense can prove that the prosecution engaged in serious misconduct, which is they intentionally knew that this witness lied, put her on the stand anyway, suborned perjury, they're not going to win this motion because the defense already tried to undermine the credibility of this witness, saying that, hey, your story has changed. He wasn't in town then. I mean, they tried to put this to the witness on cross. That's how you do it. You go to the credibility, the weight of her testimony. You rarely will see a mistrial based on a witness's inability to remember. You have to show a specific, intentional suborning a perjury, something really bad to get a mistrial. So I would say that a mistrial here is highly unlikely.
Well, they eviscerated her on cross-examination, as you can remember, probably.
Yeah.
But
that's different. That's different than
I get it. Yeah, no, I get it. But in this context, tell me, like, first of all, what is the standard of proof in this context, and to win this motion, and also, like, what would be a scenario where the defense can show that the prosecution intentionally suborned perjury? No, like they knew what she's going to say.
It's really hard to prove. You've got to show that the prosecution was in on it, that the witness intentionally lied, didn't just have a lapse of memory, but intentionally told a falsehood, and that the prosecution knew about it in advance and put her up there anyways and was part of it. It's really hard to prove. It's also hard to hold someone accountable for lying on the stand, because afterwards they'll try to send it to prosecutors. The prosecutor's going to say, like, if I had a nickel for every time a spurn party tried to get me to prosecute some witness, we'd be millionaires, because unfortunately it happens all the time that people's memories have lapses, and sometimes people do lie, but proving it is another matter.
Yeah, it's true. And now, Tommy, what was the mood like in the courthouse when the judge said he'll take this under submission? I mean, there have been other times when the defense has moved for a mistrial and it's been promptly denied, right? So what was it like today? Did you get a read on the judge, on the parties?
Yeah, I think that this morning the big thing was that the judge said he needed some time so that the prosecution could submit their own response to this. There were two motions this morning. One was the defense asked for a mistrial, and the judge said, wait until the prosecution responds and I'll weigh in tomorrow morning. And the other was that the prosecution is talking about recalling Dr. Hughes, that expert witness, and the defense was given a chance to respond to that, and the judge will rule on it tomorrow. So I don't necessarily know that people are putting a lot of stock into the fact that he's considering it, so much as he's giving both sides a chance to weigh in on the issue. I think that the prevailing sentiment from the other journalists that I talked to was, it'll be crazy if this happens, and subsequently, it's not going to happen. For many of the reasons that we've already outlined, it's just not likely. But I'll be there, and I'll be racing outside if it occurs to let you know.
Tommy, I also noticed that as this trial has been progressing, because I've been saying, you've been on more recently with me, and I've been saying, where's the criminal enterprise? Where's the criminal enterprise? Who's part of this enterprise? Where are they? Right. And I'm starting to hear D-Rock a lot. I'm starting to hear Christina Corum's name a lot. Are you getting any feel or read for whether D-Rock or Christina Corum are going to be testifying against Diddy?
I have no idea, but I've been wondering the same thing, as have, like I said, many of the other journalists that I've been talking to. We keep saying to ourselves, okay, we're hearing a lot of really harrowing testimony. These things are really brutal, and what he allegedly did to these women is horrible, but where is that enterprise, and where are its employees? We're waiting on KK, we're waiting on D-Rock, and what we want to know specifically is, are they going to be witnesses for the prosecution in an attempt to kind of cover for themselves?
Yeah.
Or are they going to be called in his defense and basically back up that everything that he's been saying? So it's a question that's been on my mind, and I would love to hear both of your takes on why we haven't seen them yet, when we might see them, what the deal with that is.
I mean, Dave, I think that the prosecution here absolutely needs those two. They were the ones that called the shots. They were the ones that were in that sort of leadership role in Diddy's orbit. And, they're not part of this indictment, but that doesn't really mean anything. Could have been indicted separately in a cooperation plea agreement. Some offer was made to them in exchange for them to come and testify against Diddy. So that's a likely sort of scenario. The other scenario is that maybe Diddy paid for their attorneys, but by the way, this happens all the time. I mean, it's not like a shady thing, but Diddy may have secured them as his witnesses. But that idea of, the weight of the hammer of federal prosecution is very heavy. And most people are not going to want to risk their life and liberty for someone else. And say, screw it, this is a winnable case, and we're not going to cooperate. Go ahead and do whatever you want to do. I mean, what is your take on their role, and what you think, is going to happen with them? Are we going to hear from them?
I think the reason why no one else has been indicted in this case except for Diddy is because the others have reached a cooperation agreement with the feds and given immunity. And so I am waiting to see KK on the stand, D-Rock perhaps, but KK seems to know where all the bodies are buried, metaphorically speaking. And perhaps they didn't put her on in their case in chief, meaning the prosecution, because they wanted to wait to use her as a rebuttal witness. Maybe you have the specter of the woman who knows everything hanging over the defense's head. Essentially, don't go too far in your defense because we've got the ace in the hole here. Also, perhaps they thought maybe they wouldn't need her because they could prove the racketeering without those two key witnesses. And I agree with you, Sarah. I'm not sure they've made their case for racketeering. I do think they made their case for human trafficking and violations of the Mann Act, prostitution. Not so sure on racketeering. So yes, that's going to be a big question moving forward.
Well, because they've made their case partially in terms of predicate acts. There's been dozens almost of predicate acts that were testified to. But without the criminal enterprise, those are just predicate acts that are, the statute of limitations are dead. They're state crimes, they're nothing, but to bring them into the RICO statute, they need that criminal enterprise. And I agree. I think that that these individuals that were running this enterprise, so to speak, for the prosecution, have been given a deal. And I'm not sure that they've necessarily been given immunity, but they've certainly been given a plea agreement that maybe avoids jail time or prison time, some kind of a deal in exchange for not being indicted. But here's another thing that I'm thinking, often trial lawyers adhere to primacy and recency, where we put our best evidence up front and at the end. And so they started with Cassie, which was at the center of this, and that video. I mean, that was at the heart of the prosecution's case. And I wonder if they're going to end with someone like KK, bring in the enterprise that way. I mean, that would be very, very powerful, I think. But
that is very interesting. Well, you're a very experienced trial lawyer yourself, Sarah. Would you have saved KK as a rebuttal witness to finish off your rebuttal case, or would you have brought her into your main case?
I would bring her in for sure in my main case, but I would leave her for like the last. I think it's smart to leave her to be the last. I mean, look at us. We're all going, where's the enterprise? Where's the enterprise?
Right.
Boom. There comes the enterprise and she takes the stand. I mean, I don't, Diddy is a powerful man. He's intimidating, all those things. But if the feds are after you're behind, I mean, I don't know that many people that would be all that loyal,
I mean,
ironically, wait, let me rephrase that. This is the mob statute. It came about, because of mob activity. So the mobs probably would. They would probably be like, nah, we're not going to snitch on this guy. We're going to hold tight. Not normal people. Not, I think.
KK, though, you have to consider, has been referred to consistently as the only person who can calm him down. And she's the one who manages everything. So she really stuck with him until the end. There was a moment today when she mentioned saying something along the lines of, I tell him he needs to take a step back because that's how we find ourselves in these messes.
How we de-escalate. Yeah.
Just the idea of her saying, that's how we got ourselves into this mess, referring to the Cassie lawsuit to begin with. Like, she is clearly aware of these things that he's doing and standing by it. So I think that she knows
complicit.
How the sausage gets made. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and she's complicit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in some ways she's also, it's kind of like she's his boss in terms of getting control over him, getting him under control when he's really, on one. So Dave, Jane Doe testified that she wasn't seeking money from Combs. Maybe Tommy can answer this question. I'm not sure if she's filed a lawsuit because there's so many women that have filed a lawsuit, but on the stand, she said she's not seeking money, but the jury heard multiple conversations and texts about her asking for money, specifically rent. I mean, to this day, he's paying her rent, something like $10,000 a month, which for LA is, I'm Angelino, it's pretty expensive. Do you think that this could hurt her credibility? Because I think we already know that part of the defense is that this is a money grab, that they were all in it for opportunities and financial gain.
Yes, I sort of think it's built in. I think a case like this with a wealthy celebrity, someone worth $250 million, it's like built in that you assume that the defense is going to be a money grab, that some people are interested in money. And, two things can be true at the same time. They can be interested in money. They can be motivated with money and by money, and at the same time be telling the truth. So yes, I do think that is an important part of the defense. It would be malpractice not to bring it up. But as I said, two things can be true at the same time.
Well, here's the thing. The money thing, I'm not looking at it like that you're making all this up for money because there's a pending lawsuit. I'm looking at it like this woman was supported. She had a very transactional relationship with Diddy. It appears to me from her testimony that, she wanted more, just like Cassie. She wanted more. She wanted to be number one. She wanted to go on these trips, do all these things that he was doing with other women, not her.
Mm-hmm.
But also that she wanted the support. She has a kid from another rapper. I kind of looked her up and she's like got an OnlyFans page and a swim line. Clearly she needs support. Okay. So, she is someone that, was in a relationship that was transactional. I mean, there's thousands. I don't know. I don't have the statistics, but there's so many people in this nation who get married for a deal like that, who are girlfriends for a deal like that. And the fact that she, in her mind, was eventually going to secure her position in this relationship as a real girlfriend in a loving relationship, but she ended up being a side chick and really prostituted, right? I mean, that's still, to me, that supports prostitution, but that doesn't really support sex trafficking.
Well, if you show force, fraud, or coercion, and coercion is something she testified to about being threatened with the release of these videos. She was so scared of it that she appealed to KK, who acted as a reasonable intermediary to say, no, it's going to be okay. And apparently took control of the phones to make sure the videos wouldn't get released. That's how seriously KK apparently took it. So with this witness, KK looked pretty decent, I thought. But this Jane Doe does provide evidence of the coercion that is needed to establish human trafficking.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy, what did I say my mama taught me the other day?
No such thing as a free lunch.
I'm sorry. I mean,
I will say though,
by the extortion about I'm going to show these videos unless you comply with my demands.
I get it. I just
the other thing that, and this is unfortunately just a bit of he said, she said, one of the things that she mentioned, and this is looking past the love contract, which frankly I still haven't fully wrapped my head around the terms of. I know that he was paying her rent, and I'm not quite sure what it was agreed upon that he would get in return. But the one thing that she did say today was that she is not suing him, had never considered suing him, wasn't looking for money at all until he called her. And this is where it gets tricky, because she says that this happened in a phone call. There's no record of it. But he called her and said, charge me. Tell me what we need to get over this. Charge me.
Yeah.
She then sent him a text message asking for money. And he responded with some words I'm probably not allowed to say on YouTube, and basically said, get out of here. So her claim is that he told her to ask for money. He was offering money to help them.
But when she did,
and then,
but he told her to take a hike, basically.
Yeah, right.
Which probably pissed her off as well. But he's still paying her rent. This
is what I want to know. How, why, what, I want to know how their relationship ended.
But here's the thing. And Dave can, I'm sure, well, maybe agree with me on this. I don't know with you. I don't know. I feel like, look, if Diddy came to me with this mess, right? And he's like, by the way, there's this other chick. I've been paying her rent. What do I do? Can I stop paying her rent? I'd probably tell him to continue paying her rent, right? Because then it doesn't look so much like it's a transactional prostitution type of deal that, he took her on. He decided to support her, and he's still doing it out of the goodness of his heart. To me, that's a better look than cutting it off as soon as the hotel night's cut off. Yeah. Don't you think?
Perhaps his lawyer told him.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Don't end the payments. Keep them coming. And yeah. But
I'm sure that he told his son, stop paying this. I'm not getting out. There's no bond. Stop this. But the lawyer said, do not stop payments you're making to any of these women that have been doing these freak offs with you, because then it really looks like trafficking and prostitution.
That actually makes a ton of sense. That is a really good perspective. Yeah.
Because I was thinking, wow, at first I was like, wow, how kind of him. He's got legal bills to pay. He's got, then I'm like, no, I would tell him exactly to keep paying. It's exactly what I would counsel him to do, is to continue paying, But also I think, and as someone who has paid his way out of, paid for silence for so long, I think it's also in some ways normal for him to be like, well, maybe if I keep paying her rent, she's really not going to cooperate and take the stand against me. I mean, there's also that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just human nature. This is a world that the rest of us and the jurors probably just have no idea of. Like, here's a celebrity with these weird freak offs,
fetishes,
and paying these women to hang around and to do crazy things. And then even after he breaks up with them, or they break up, then he continues to pay them. And it's just got to be bewildering to these jurors who are, some of them are probably living paycheck to paycheck. And I wonder how that plays. I wonder if they look at everyone involved and says, a plague on both their houses, or if they look at Diddy and says, you know what, I've been working hard all my life, and you have seemed to just skate on by with special privilege and all these parties and women, and your day of reckoning is here.
Yeah, I mean, um, I think YouTube lets me say this, the asshole defendant um, syndrome, right? Or situation, because, when the defendant is so unlikable, and has no sympathy, in fact, the opposite, triggers all kinds of disgust. I think it's a lot easier for a jury to look past all the doubt in the world. You know what I mean? Don't give this guy the benefit of the doubt whatsoever. And so that's the danger here, because you have an extremely, disgusting defendant, really. And then you have the defense obviously bringing in a lot of doubt, money grab, fabricated testimony, an axe to grind, speculation about an arson, no real facts, no police report, no investigation. You have all the, I mean, this is all doubt, but at the end of the day, he is, it's, it's just the ugliness is on full display in a way that I think the jury can very much, find him guilty. And I also think it's a real litmus test for the Me Too movement. I don't think there's been any case like this since that movement took off in 2017. This type of, where there's real relationships. These are not, this is not a Harvey Weinstein situation where the woman comes and says, I was assaulted. I didn't consent. These women were in a consensual adult relationship, but it's very deep, these layers of, sexual and psychological abuse. It's a different level of coercion to me.
Well, we have seen this in some way in the R. Kelly case, and he's
But they
now
were minors. But they were minors.
right. Well, yes, that's correct. But also, at some point, they became adults, and he had
Yes.
these, and at that point, a relationship with him. So there are some parallels.
I mean,
Also,
and
with
R.
President
Kelly,
Secretary.
my problem was and I know this is not a defense, but the parents were complicit. Who would let their child go spend 2 weeks at some man's home because they're disenfranchised and they wanted to, get out of poverty and make their children stars or whatnot. And then all that happened. But they were minors. They could not consent. Here we
When
have,
they were minors, correct.
yeah,
Now, as adults, you have to prove force, fraud, and coercion. It's harder to do so. Much easier to prove human trafficking when there's a minor involved. You don't need force, fraud,
absolutely.
or coercion.
Yeah, like Ghislaine Maxwell, same district, SDNY, same statute, but they were minors at the time. Here we have adults, and we also have. I remember Cassie Ventura's friend Carrie Morgan saying that she was making money, like $250,000, which at the time was pretty good money, and was in studios like recording. So Diddy was connecting her with all these artists to record with. So we even had someone with opportunities. To me, this woman's testimony, Jane's testimony, in a lot of ways is more compelling than Cassie's. She doesn't have the domestic violence video, or we haven't heard about domestic violence yet. But in terms of just like they're really, I mean, she really was a sex slave. I mean, I get it from her testimony why she felt that way.
Mhm.
It seemed like he only wanted her around when it was time for a hotel night, and even on her birthday, right? I felt sorry for her. I really did. Even I felt sorry for her. I mean, imagine that.
He's in a lot of trouble. He's in a lot of trouble. When you've lost Sarah as a juror on your side, you're done.
And she did get into a little bit at the end of court today, violence between the two of them. But what I thought was interesting was that she fully admitted to starting it. She shoved him, she started an argument with him, but then he kind of took it to the next level and would kick down doors to get at her. And it really, again, I think you're right. She's, regardless of how she got into this situation, you feel sympathetic to her because she's just trying to get by. And it's really hard hearing the things that she's saying that she had to endure. I mean, she was saying,
I wonder, first of all, I wonder who's doing her cross-examination. Do we know, Tommy?
So I know that Tenny Garagos has been the one doing the objections during the direct examination, but I don't believe that means she is necessarily the one doing the cross. You would know better than I would. So aside from that, I'm not sure. No.
I mean, Tenny did the opening, I think that Nicole Westmoreland, well, here's the thing. The strategy has been go really soft on Cassie for obvious reasons. She was a victim of domestic abuse, no doubt about that. And then bring out Nicole Westmoreland to beat up the
Really?
witnesses like Dawn Richard, Bonna, all these women. And I wonder whether because she falls into like sort of not a domestic violence, well, I mean, domestic abuse, psychological abuse, whatever category, and as an ex-girlfriend, that maybe they'll go soft on her too. I don't know. It's definitely there's a strategy there by the defense, and I agree with it. It's good tactic, but I don't know that it would be Tenny necessarily. Tenny's the more junior on the team. So, and I think the cross examination of this witness is very critical, and I think the closing argument, I mean, it's important in every case, but this case really, really matters, right, Dave? Because how do you sell to the jury that your client is this bad of a guy, but he didn't racketeer and sex traffic?
Well, that is their defense, is that, yes, we know he's done bad things, but this case should be a domestic violence case in state court. He's not being charged with domestic violence here. It's not state court. Send him over there. That's where they need to do justice. Of course, that'll never happen, but that is their defense. And I don't think it's a good one because video speaks for itself. They're not going to like Diddy when they see him repeatedly attack Cassie on that video, which is shown over and over again.
Yeah.
And even if they let him skate on racketeering, which is a real possibility, I just don't see him skating on everything. It's like the jury must say, bad dude, I can't let him walk free. We're going to find something here to convict him on. And there's plenty to do.
Yeah, someone called it, I think I read somewhere, I heard somewhere, the complicated man defense. I'm like, he's more than a complicated man. He's a really bad man, the bad man defense. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think you would put on as his defense if you were representing him? If you think that this idea that this was domestic violence, he's just an angry, bad, wife beating guy, what would you put on as a defense here?
Oh, I think the defense is doing a good job with the garbage they have. I mean, it's not their fault that the facts are so bad, but they are focusing the jury on that this is a lover's quarrel, a jealous person, and this is what happens in relationships. That doesn't mean it's human trafficking. Doesn't mean it's racketeering. And then the Mann Act is another issue they're dealing with by the fact that some of the sex workers wanted to be there. That's a tough one. I think that one is the one he's most likely to be convicted on. But that's small potatoes compared to human trafficking and racketeering. But in the end, you have to explain away the video because the video is so powerful. And the way they're doing it is intertwined with their defense of domestic violence. They're saying, look, he's grabbing at the phone. See, this is what happens in relationships. You can all relate to that. It's not about freak offs or these weird sex parties. It's about jealousy. They had a relationship.
Yeah. No, it's there's definitely a lot of evidence about jealousy that both Jane and Cassie have said, he was with other women, but with Jane, he definitely had a very clear understanding. And look, there was an open relationship, but she didn't want that. So, I mean, I don't know. I to some degree, I feel like when you say coercion, when you're thinking of coercion, and I'm thinking of, well, you could have left, right? So these are adults. Cassie was working. She had opportunities. There's testimony about her doing films and other things outside of Diddy's enterprise. This woman she's an adult. She has a child. I mean, the fact that she likes men to pay for her lifestyle, that's a different story, but she can go work. So, to me, isn't that the opposite of coercion? If the defense comes in and elicits testimony that it's not like a disenfranchised minor, that's coercion. But like she could go get employment. Why is that coercion? She just chose this relationship because some women do that.
Well, we saw force in the video.
Yeah.
We didn't see really fraud, but coercion, and you don't need you need any of them, force, fraud, or coercion. When it comes to coercion, it's when you say, I'm going to reveal these videos to the world. That's coercion. And so I think they have plenty of that.
Oh,
And not
okay.
even
Okay. I didn't look at it that way. Good
not
point.
even just to the world, but specifically, according to Jane, Diddy threatened to send the videos that he had of her to the father of her child. And while she didn't get into this necessarily, I can certainly see a world in which to her it suddenly becomes an issue of keeping the kid, you know?
Right. Like a court battle for child custody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
where my mind went. And
Yeah.
when you put it that way, I certainly can't say that I blame her for doing whatever it took.
I mean, all right. I don't know. I think, I think, look, if, I think he'll for sure go down on prostitution, because when the trial started, I was thinking, oh, the male escorts, prostitution, he was flying one from Atlanta down to, New York, Miami, whatever. But now, I mean, Jane was definitely prostituted. I mean, Jane was legit prostituted. So no doubt that he would be found guilty of that. And I wonder if maybe the jury, sometimes the jury, when they're struggling with a really bad guy, but like there is doubt as to the charges, they split the baby and they go, well, we'll find him guilty on something. We won't let him walk, right? So maybe that'll work to his benefit. I don't know, but I do struggle with this case because I think it really further dilutes the idea of consent. And I've had a problem with this since the Me Too movement took off in 2017, that we've just gone too far. And everyone says the pendulum will come back to the middle. But if he's found guilty, I think the pendulum has struck Mars. I mean, I think it's really gone the other way. For me, this is a very different case than all the other ones that we've talked about. Anyway, Dave, Tommy, thank you so much for joining me. Please come back, Dave, because it's always great to have you on the show. And Tommy, I know I'll see you the rest of the week. And for our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Please stay with News Nation and Serving Justice every day as we take a deep dive into the Sean Combs trial.